Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Why would someone steal something they can never, ever sell? Imagine pulling off the heist of the century, lifting a priceless masterpiece from a museum, only to know you can't fence it, can't ransom it, can't show it off without getting caught. It seems completely illogical, but for a specific type of criminal, the motive isn't about profit. It's about a passion so intense it curdles into a dangerous criminal obsession. Today, we're exploring the strange psychology of stealing priceless, unsellable art. This isn't the world of suave, financially motivated thieves from the movies. The reality is often far stranger. These thieves are connoisseurs, art lovers with a profoundly skewed moral compass, driven by a consuming desire to possess the beautiful, the rare, and the historically significant. At its core, the psychology of any collector is rooted in what experts call the thrill of the hunt. The search for a rare item, the anticipation of finally acquiring it, can be an exhilarating adventure. In fact, research shows that our brain's pleasure centers can be more intensely activated during the anticipation of getting something than in the actual possession of it. This drive can provide a sense of purpose and excitement. Another powerful motivator is the desire for completion. Collectors often strive to acquire a complete set or series, and the satisfaction of finally achieving that goal can be deeply fulfilling. But there's a thin line. When this passion veers into obsession, it can lead to anxiety and obsessive thoughts. The collector becomes fixated on completing a set or acquiring one specific, unattainable piece. And it's in this gray area between a passionate hobby and a psychological dependency that an art lover can become an art thief. Perhaps no case better illustrates this psychological profile than that of Stéphane Breitwieser. Described as arguably the world's most consistent art thief, Breitwieser admitted to an astonishing crime spree. Between 1995 and 2001, he stole 239 artworks from 172 museums across Europe. The estimated value of his haul was over $1.4 billion. But here is the critical detail. He claimed to have never sold a single piece. Breitwieser wasn't driven by greed. He was a self-described art connoisseur who stole simply to build an extraordinary personal collection. He had a particular fondness for 16th and 17th century masters. His methods weren't what you'd see in a spy movie. He wasn't a brazen burglar rappelling from the ceiling. He would often visit small, regional museums at lunchtime, when security was known to be lax. Dressed smartly and often accompanied by his girlfriend, who acted as a lookout, he looked like any other visitor. He would carefully assess the layout, the guards, and the security systems before deftly removing a small painting or object that stirred him emotionally. He once said, quote, "I enjoy art. I love such works of art. I collected them and kept them at home." This obsession seems to have roots in his childhood. He grew up in a home filled with antiques, and he recalled going on expeditions with his grandfather, searching for historical remnants like old bits of metal or pottery. He felt that these unearthed objects were like private messages that had waited centuries specifically for him. This profound sense of a personal connection with historical objects is a key element in understanding his later crimes. He wasn't just stealing objects, he was rescuing them, forming a personal relationship with them. So where did he keep this billion-dollar collection? Not in a high-tech, climate-controlled vault. The stolen artworks were displayed in the attic of the house he shared with his mother. He had created a secret, private museum, a sanctuary where he could live with the art intimately. For Breitwieser, this was never about the monetary value. It was about the daily experience of being surrounded by these masterpieces. His connection to the pieces was so personal and profound that during his trial, he would frequently interrupt the prosecutor as they read the list of stolen items. He wasn't confessing. He was correcting them on details about the art, the artists, and their history. He knew more about the pieces than the museum curators from whom he'd stolen them. The end of Breitwieser's collection is as strange and tragic as its beginning. Upon learning of her son's arrest, his mother flew into a panic. Instead of trying to hide the art, she destroyed a huge portion of it. She shredded paintings, burned others in the garden, and tossed priceless Renaissance-era objects, like ivory statues and silver goblets, into a nearby canal. While authorities were able to recover many of the items from the muddy water, the loss to the art world was immeasurable. Breitwieser's story is a powerful, poignant example of how a deep-seated love for art can become a destructive, demonic passion that ultimately consumes both the collector and the collection itself. But possession isn't the only obsessive motive. Let's look at another famous case, the 1911 disappearance of the Mona Lisa from the Louvre. The culprit was Vincenzo Peruggia, an Italian handyman who had previously done some work at the museum. His method was shockingly simple. On a Monday morning when the museum was closed to the public, he dressed in a white worker's smock, walked straight to the painting, lifted it off the wall, took it to a stairwell, removed it from its heavy frame, and simply walked out of the building with the priceless canvas tucked under his smock. For 2 years, the world's most famous painting was hidden in a false-bottom trunk in Peruggia's small Paris apartment. But Peruggia's motivation was not financial gain, nor was it the collector's desire for personal possession in the same way as Breitwieser. His was a case of misguided patriotism. Peruggia believed that the Mona Lisa had been stolen from Italy by Napoleon Bonaparte, and that it was his patriotic duty to return it to its homeland. This belief, however, was historically inaccurate. Leonardo da Vinci himself had brought the painting to France when he came to work for the king. Ironically, the theft itself is what transformed the Mona Lisa. Before it was stolen, it was a well-regarded piece within the art world, but it wasn't a global household name. After its disappearance, it became an international sensation. Thousands of people flocked to the Louvre just to stare at the empty space on the wall where it once hung. Peruggia was eventually caught when he tried to return the painting to Italy by contacting an art dealer in Florence. But his trial was a spectacle. In Italy, he wasn't seen as a common thief. He was hailed as a national hero. The court treated him with remarkable leniency, sentencing him to just 7 months in jail. Peruggia's case shows how a powerful, deeply held idea, even a completely wrong one, can be a potent motivator for an extraordinary crime. His was an obsession not with the object itself, but with a nationalistic ideal. Breitwieser and Peruggia are two of the most famous examples. But the motivations for stealing unsellable art exist on a spectrum. Experts categorize art thieves into several types. There are, of course, those who steal for profit, hoping to ransom the art back to the museum or its insurer. But then there are the trophy hunters or crazed art fans, the ones we're talking about today, who are driven by the sheer beauty of the art or the adrenaline rush of the theft itself. For some, the act of stealing a famous painting can be a way to gain prestige and credibility within certain criminal circles, serving as a calling card that proves their skill. For others, it can be a simple, impulsive act, an overwhelming feeling of desire for an object that they cannot manage or control. The act of stealing can also be a way of asserting a form of mastery over an object that is otherwise completely unattainable. You can't buy it, so you take it, making it yours in the most definitive, albeit illegal way. The psychology of collecting itself offers these clues. While for most people it's an enjoyable hobby, for a small percentage it can become an obsessive preoccupation, diminishing their interest in every other part of life. This obsessive behavior can be linked to a need for control, a form of escapism from the real world, or even an attempt to define one's personal identity through the objects they own. The line between a passionate collector and an obsessive one is dangerously thin. The desire to possess a beautiful object can become so overwhelming that it eclipses all other considerations, including the law and the practical fact that the stolen art can never be shared or sold without immense risk. For these individuals, the true value of the art is not its market price. It's the secret, illicit pleasure of personal, total ownership. In the end, the theft of priceless, unsellable art is a crime born not of financial desperation, but of a complex and often tragic psychological landscape. It's a story of love and obsession, of a deep appreciation for beauty that becomes twisted into a possessive and destructive force. The empty frames left behind in museums are not just evidence of a crime. They are haunting reminders of the powerful and sometimes perilous nature of a collector's obsession